Nice! Oh hey, I didn't see you there. Well, since you're here, let's talk about World War I.
World War I was one of the most fatalist wars, mainly because of the encounter of automatic weaponry. This completely changed the art of battle and caused a change in military tactics. At the time, nobody knew how to efficiently maneuver around incoming bullets.
One good example of this change would be the popular use of cavalry warfare, which proved to be obsolete with the addition of the machine gun. The film War Horse perfectly illustrated this dramatic change in combat.
Gegen 4!
Viel Glück, meine Freunde.
Im Schritt vorwärts! Vorwärts! Marsch! Vorwärts im Konter! Konter! Marsch!
And that resorted to trench warfare. Trench warfare is simply a slow-paced combat between a series of trenches divided by a gap known as no man's land.
This made combat and progress very difficult because tactics involving advancements or pushes required a single soldier to run across no man's land to disable the enemy station machine gun.
From 1915, the machine gun began to dominate tactical thinking and was in large part responsible for the years of stalemate.
Some units could now fire close to 1 million rounds a day. That made it incredibly difficult to sustain momentum across a battlefield. If you got a good charge going, you would quickly see the dead bodies stacking up as machine gun fire cut people down.
Because of its difficulty, many were afraid to take this course of action.
What about combat in the trenches?
Well, in addition to machine guns, there were also rifles and trench knives. Usually both.
Trench knives were used for close-quarter combat when raiding an enemy trench.
They could be very simple too. Here's a chair leg. Very nasty. You wouldn't want to get hit with that. Soon, trench knives were introduced, which were purpose-made, like this one. Very sharp little blade with a nasty set of brass knuckles. You can imagine how close you'd have to be to make that an effective weapon. Basically, anything that could be used as a weapon in the trenches was.
Rifles were primarily used from mid to long range combat. The most popular or common rifle was the M1903 Springfield rifle. The reason for its popularity was because of its 5-round magazine repeating action.
Now, for the usually both part, oftentimes soldiers would have bayonets, which is basically a rifle with a knife attached to the end of it.
Got it in there, twisted it round and pulled it out for a proper kill.
This made switching from long range to close quarter combat more swift.
One of the most biggest things that was introduced in World War I was the introduction of tanks. Tanks were introduced as a response to the stalemate of trench warfare.
The Battle of the Somme, fought over 5 months in 1916, was British Commander Douglas Haig's attempt to end the 2-year stalemate. By September, it has already cost the Allies over 300,000 casualties. Desperate to stop the carnage, Haig turns to his new weapon.
The first series of tanks actually did not have any cannons, but were just simply reinforced vehicles. Its odd design was made for it to be able to move through all terrains, which included trees, barbed wire, and trenches.
The going was now simply one succession of shell craters. It was thrilling the way the tank would go down into a crater, stick her tracks into the opposite wall, and then steadily climb out.
The tank was very useful to use as cover, as many troops hid behind it while advancing.
All 3 tanks are lost, but the infantry take Delville Wood, clearing the way for Haig's main attack, which calls for 200,000 Allied troops to advance along a 7-mile front. Their objective? The fortified villages of Courcelette, Morval, and Fleur. And for the first time, tanks will lead a mass infantry attack. Their mission? Crush the barbed wire and suppress machine gun fire, allowing the infantry to advance and storm the German trenches.
Lastly, one of the most abnormal encounters in World War I was the use of biological warfare. The most infamous toxic gas used in World War I was the mustard gas. The use of poison gas injured, demoralized, and killed the entrenched defenders. Although the high potential of deaths this could cause, gas masks were invented to counter the gas, which significantly decreased casualties.
Are you my mommy?
Because of this, only 4% of the total deaths were caused by poison gas.
Thanks to gas masks and the vagaries of the wind, the world's first weapon of mass destruction hadn't decided the war. But it had killed over 100,000 men. Over 1 million had been poisoned by it and would bear its marks on their shattered lungs for years. Harbour himself continued to proclaim it was a superb terror weapon. Every change of sensation in the nose and mouth, he wrote, nags in the mind. It creates utter confusion, eroding the soldier's inner strength. But others saw gas as the most inhumane weapon of a conflict that had plumbed the depths of man's inhumanity to man.
Es war eine wichtige Waffe, weil sie zur Demoralisierung der Soldaten entscheidend beigetragen hat. Also die Millionen Soldaten auf beiden Seiten der Front haben diese Eindrücke vom Gaskrieg mit nach Hause genommen, und das waren eigentlich die schlimmsten Eindrücke des Krieges.
In conclusion, many new forms of combat were used in World War I. From tactics, weapons, and vehicles, this was all never before seen prior to this war. Our world today has also encountered new ways and techniques of combat. There's been so many advancements that any war between any 2 superpowers could lead to the end of the world. Like trench warfare, we have reached stalemate with nuclear weapons.
Before we end this video, I would like to discuss about the exchange of the war.
For every bad, there is a good. This war brought with it more machines of death.
New medicines were invented from further studies of toxic gas. New ethical codes were drafted up to help govern war. And lastly, the value of life has dramatically increased. World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars, but due to a series of complications, this war has swiftly been overshadowed by its predecessor, World War II.